Hey Alex, curious what a guy like Nick Benito, how he fits, I guess, the scheme, the culture you want to implement at Oklahoma or have been implementing at Oklahoma, and if you could just articulate his value to this defense.
No, I think it's a tremendous fit. I mean, and we use him at what we call the rush linebacker spot, and it's a hybrid position. I think it's a position that you see, whatever you name it, you see maybe implemented in a lot of different defenses. It gives you the ability to, use an athletic guy to at times in coverage, at times, as a man responsibility on a running back. But ultimately, we call it the rush because that's what they do the highest percentage of the time. And so you're looking for that individual who can have an impact, specifically in the passing game in terms of rushing the passer. It also gives you the ability to use an athletic guy that can otherwise spy a quarterback. And so, I hesitate to use the word hybrid too much because it's something that again you see all across the country, also at the NFL level. But it's designed to be a position of productivity, and so that's something that Nick is developing into. Has taken some major steps just in our time as a defensive staff, and it's still an early career for him. And is another guy that just continues to get better. And so, Nick's very much a prototype for the type of guy at that position, and I've been pleased with him thus far.
Thanks, Coach.
Eric Bailey, and then Bob Brisbillo.
Alex, I just wanted to ask you about third down conversion percentage. You guys have really got that number down. Can you talk about just how pleased you are with the way you're playing on third down?
Well, it's a critical, obviously down in football. We call it a key down, and designed to kind of the antennas up, for our guys when it's a third down situation. It's a planned takeaway. The only difference between a third down stop and a takeaway is field position, because obviously there's a kicking play after a third down stop as opposed to the field position that's so critical when it comes to a takeaway. But there's X number of planned takeaways across the game. It's an opportunity to steal possession and get the ball back to our offense. And so when we say key down, it is just that. What you never want to do is we say don't be a prisoner to the sticks. And so to imply that if they get a first down, that all of a sudden it's a 3rd and 7 or something along those lines, an 8-yard gain is a devastating play to our football program. You never want to get to that point. But at the same token, you want to take advantage of those opportunities, certainly when the sticks are out, to your advantage. But also, opportunities. We get TFLs in 1st and 10 situations. Why can't you get a TFL in the 3rd and 1 situation? And so just the mindset behind all of that. But we have done a fairly good job of that. And that's something that's always a 1 week, kind of evaluatable stat, just simply because the 1 week the script gets flipped and they're converting 70% of the time. Obviously, it's going to have an impact on outcomes, and so that's something that obviously it's an emphasis, but it's something that one of the things that we've done over the years is kind of commit to, okay, these are the things that we do, and so in those critical key downs, as opposed to being the defense of the week and saying, okay, let's draw up something new that our opponent maybe never has seen. It's also something our guys have never repped, and so we've kind of committed to saying, okay, this is our package on third downs, and so in those key situations, the guys expect certain calls, and then have had the ability to execute at a high level.
Thanks, Alex.
Go to Bob Brisbillo and then Jason Kersey.
Yeah. Alex, has it been easier to keep true freshmen like Bryson, DJ, Brendan more engaged because there's no 4-game rule and they know like they're not automatically going to redshirt? They know there's chances throughout this season.
No, that's an interesting point, and I think that's accurate. I think having the 4 games, in recent years, but that has kind of given you a little bit of wiggle room to play with. But for instance, Bryson, had some opportunity to make a couple tackles on kickoff last week, and so that's just one less conversation that you're having as a coaching staff in terms of can we use him, should we use him, is this the game, one of the games that we're going to use if it's only on a kicking play, for instance. But it gives you the availability. Then the practice reps are so expensive meaning that every rep that you give to an individual on a Tuesday, you have to be very wise in terms of who you give those reps to. And so specifically to those young guys, and you're talking about several guys that weren't able to practice maybe in a couple weeks over the course of the early parts of the year, as you say, okay, well, now we're able to practice. Well, if we don't think we can get them in the plan on that particular Saturday, are we really willing to give them reps on Tuesdays and Wednesdays from somebody else that otherwise could play in the game that we think is closer to being ready? And so in any event with those individuals, the nice thing is, again, whether it's 4 weeks ago they get 5-10 reps, with a quote unquote varsity, with the 1 and 2 defense, going against the scout team on those particular weeks. You do that because they're available that week. You don't know exactly how the games are going to go, all those things, and so it's given us a little bit of freedom that way, and it's appropriate for us to use that and see how deep this roster can get. Not just week 4 of the season or week 6 of the season, but over what ends up being 10 weeks, including a couple buys. And so, no, that's something we'll continue to kind of push the envelope with, every one of those individuals.
Okay, Jason Kersey and then Ryan Aber.
Hey, Alex, given all that you lost on the defensive line between Neville and then obviously Ronnie and Jalen, did you have any indication that your defensive line would be as good as good and as deep?
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that as you looked at it, you said, we felt like we had a pretty good combination of athleticism with size. You didn't have obviously the experience that we lost from a year ago, and then you mentioned some of those names that we expected to have, and then obviously not available for us, and so then it certainly creates some interesting conversations as a defensive staff, saying, okay, well, how can we manipulate the guys that are available to get us, and the best example is Isaiah Thomas. And how we've kind of used him, and that's Coach Kane, that's Coach Thibodeau, that's myself, the whole defensive staff having conversations about, okay, well, how can we, not force feed certain individuals into roles that they're otherwise not going to be successful at, but finding the best mix of guys. Obviously, adding a couple junior college guys that we've talked about this year in Ellison and Perrion, as immediate impact guys, because we did lose so much in our front. And then the responsibility part is obviously Coach Tibbs, coaching them up to a level that they can produce for us, and then them obviously doing their part attached to that. And so, been pleased, and I still think it's one of those things that we haven't seen. Our best yet, in our defensive front. I think we have been disruptive at times, which has been good. And I don't mean that as a negative. I think the bar is still a little bit higher than where we've reached. I think they would agree with that. There's still some plays that we're leaving on the field. You're not going to make them all, but no, I think it's something that is going to be critical to our success over the last half of this year, specifically this weekend.
Thanks, Alex.
Okay, Ryan Aber and then John Hoover.
Sort of along those lines, Alex, wanted to ask you about the job that Jamar Cain has done, and what do you think about that overall, especially in this sort of different kind of year, especially for a new coach at a program, and maybe what have you learned about him as a coach since he arrived?
Well, I think, number one, at a place like in Oklahoma, the nice thing is when you go to make a hire, and we may have talked about this in the past, is, the list of names that are available is exciting to see. And so, in the end, what you have to do is you got to try to find, someone that's going to obviously add value to the staff and is going to be a lead teacher for your current roster. And so, bringing in Coach Kane, has done a tremendous job with our guys. It kind of allowed us, in some respects, for Coach Tibbs to just focus strictly on the interior of our defensive line, as opposed to all of a sudden now you're having to kind of have dual meetings. You're talking to an edge guy on his responsibilities and how that might apply to the pass game, or peeling with a back in terms of man coverage responsibilities and something along those lines. Then all of a sudden there's your nose guard is how's he going to beat the center, and so that there's a lot of again, meetings are expensive too. Every coaching point you're giving one guy that doesn't apply to the rest of the room. Again, there's an expense to that because that's one less coaching point that they're getting. So this just made a lot of sense from a structure standpoint. And now you got two elite coaches that are handling our front. But I think the biggest thing with Coach Kane been a number of different places. Like a number of guys on the staff brings new thoughts, new perspective. For a couple of guys that on the staff, Coach Odom, myself, Coach Manning, we go back, several years, and sometimes you can look at it, what we do against USC X number of years ago. Well, Coach Kane doesn't care what we did against USC, and he doesn't remember that play or that call or anything along those lines. He had a great call, when he was at Arizona State or North Dakota State or Fresno and all those things. And so he's given us perspective, about things that he's been successful with, whether it's a pass rush move, stunt, how to call anything along those lines. So no, anytime you have an elite coach that brings good perspective, new perspective, and all things, can add to a staff. I mean that is obviously best case scenario, and he does all those things. He checks all those boxes.
Appreciate it, Alex.
John Hoover and then Jenny Carlson.
There we go. Hey, sorry. Wanted to ask about Jordan Kelly, coming off that knee injury, I think it was. He's been kind of coming back a little bit slow maybe, but then you see him play. He made some flashes against TCU last week. Is that accurate? Did he stand out to you? And was that a season high for snaps for him? And is he progressing, I guess, as you would expect coming off that injury like that?
No, he is, and I thought, for Jordan coming off that injury, he was available, I guess, from a health standpoint, which is a tall order when you have a surgery, involving the ACL, and then I don't remember the exact week last season where all of a sudden now you get a chance to practice. Well, some guys take to that very well, some guys don't. I don't think he attacked it the way he needed to. I think he fell into the injury mode and kind of came back with us and was kind of content and maybe getting some snaps in practice and some of those things. And so I don't think he attacked again the 2019 season coming off the injury as well as he could have. Now again, that's not easy to do, and so it's his knee, not mine. So as critical as I am, that's just fact. I thought he could have done a better job of it. And then so what that created though for us this season is, okay, who's this Jordan Kelly guy? Specifically for myself, I saw very few snaps of him. You didn't even get a chance to see him really work out because he's always in the injured group and all those things. And then he comes back and he's on the practice field, but there's no flash. There's nothing to suggest that he's going to be some elite player at Oklahoma. And that's just the reality of it. You can only go on based on what you see. And so what you saw this offseason, some of which was from afar, obviously, but there was just a recommitment, I think, on his part in order to be a high-level football player. You saw it in workouts. You saw it early on in fall camp. And all of a sudden, going into the defensive staff room talking about, I'm a fan of Jordan Kelly. I don't know who this guy is or where he came from, but I'm turning into a fan. And that's just my personal view on it. And it has continued to progress that way. And I think those impact plays that you're talking about is something that is going to continue to gain his confidence. Someone that's been in the program a couple of years that hasn't had a major impact on Saturdays yet. You kind of saw this past week, and that's good for him. It's good for us. And another guy has mentioned, which kind of a common theme is I still don't think we've seen his best football, which is certainly a positive. But in the same token, we have a game to win this weekend, and we need guys like him to step up.
Do was that a season high?
I'd have to go back to the rep count. It certainly was close. But all those guys on the interior have been very pleased, and mentioned Coach Tibbs again. Kind of been a 5-man rotation in the interior of our defensive line, which is a really nice, to have that number available, each week, and also the quality reps that those individuals are giving. You talk about Corey Roberson, young guy in the program, as well. And I mentioned Ellison and Perrion and LaRon and that stuff. So no, that's a rotation that'll continue to take place.
Thanks, Alex.
Got a hard stop time of 11:30. Jenny, if you could be pretty quick. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Hey, Alex. To continue this defensive line, conga line of questions, as it relates to Isaiah, I'm kind of curious about his mentality and how it works with other guys on the line. Sort of who is he as far as, the personality with that defensive line, and how has that changed over the last couple of years?
Well, and I think it's changed for him because I think, all of a sudden you look up and you're the old guy. You're kind of a rotational guy. You play some snaps, and he had some effort plays for us a year ago, and works hard and all those things, and found himself, probably in that 10 to 15 snap range a game last year. Obviously, a couple instances where maybe it was a little bit more than that, but that's essentially was a role player for us. And then had an opportunity just with some attrition and some of the things we've already mentioned in terms of opportunity presenting himself in fall camp to get more reps. And also the ability, just as a worker, a team guy, the opportunity to play a couple different spots. And I think he's gained confidence, from that, both on the interior of the defensive line and on the edge. And what you've seen is him make an impact kind of wherever we put him. And I think I mentioned it before. All he does is do exactly what he's being coached to do, and does it to the best of his ability, as hard as he can possibly do it. And it's amazing how guys have a tendency to be productive when those things take place. And so leader by example, but again, that's certainly a dynamic guy for us up front, and has been probably the MVP of the defense up until this point.